Hi everybody, this is Andy LaMora, Chief Technology Officer for EPON Technologies USA. I'm here at the Veil in Scott's Edition, where we're also having a Remedy Burger today, and I'm joined by Steve MacLauchlan from the Virginia State Police.
Hello, my friend.
Great to see you again.
You as well.
Thank you.
After you.
Hi Steve, welcome to the Data Pour.
Hello, my friend. Thank you for having me.
It's great to see you again.
Yeah, man, you too.
Especially so close to our old stomping grounds.
That's right. Yeah.
So Steve, there's really only one way to begin this interview. You have spent years on the host side of this
is true.
engagement, and here you are on the victim side.
Yes. I know exactly all the stress you're feeling right now. No.
Oh, I'm good. So that means I really only have one question to ask you to start us off.
Please.
What is the one question that you're hoping I don't ask you today?
Oh my gosh, that is a great question. It was that. You just asked it. That was a hard question.
Oh, I can't let you off that easy.
Man, that's a great question. What I think the future looks like. That's the hardest thing. Like 5 years from now, I would ask everybody, hey, what does 5 years look? And everyone's like, I have no idea. Things are moving so rapidly right now. You know, things are so exciting. There's so much innovation. How do you answer that? How do you answer that with confidence? You know, you can guess, but that's a hard one. So don't ask me that.
That's a tough one. Which
Yeah.
brings me to my next question. So, Steve, what do the next 5 years look like?
Man, that's a great question, Andy. I'm so glad you asked that. I was really hoping you would ask me that. Man, it's going to be wild times. I think it's going to be really wild times. Obviously, we're seeing a massive proliferation of AI. That's not going to slow down. I do wonder now if we're reaching a bit of a plateau in it. I feel like for the last 2 years, people are like, nope, there's no end. And now I'm like, I don't know. Is the art, video, generative AI getting better? I think maybe incrementally. I've read a couple articles recently how even, adding much larger, more vast training sets, a billion more parameters aren't materially moving the needle in any kind of, even close to linear way. So I am almost wondering, are we nearing a peak for a while or, hitting a plateau for a little while? I don't know that we are, but maybe. I think, as we continue to figure out how we live and work with an AI proliferated world, what does that look like? I myself have made a few adjustments in my life regarding AI and how I interact with it. And in some cases, I have this new philosophy in my personal life that I'm like, I kind of want to get back to some friction. I used to be like, oh, it's cool. I don't know what I'm going to shop for, so I'm going to ask ChatGPT. And I don't know what recipe I'm looking for, so I'm going to ask ChatGPT. And now I'm sort of like, I'm increasingly finding that leads to isolation. So while I know it's there if I need it, I think I'd rather be like, hey, Mom, tell me about that recipe that you made, interacting with humans. I've annoyed my friends. I've told them, I'm like, hey guys, I'm not going to Google things if I know you have the answer. You can tell me if I'm being annoying, but if I'm asking something and one of my friends is an expert, I'm just going to call you because I'm a human being and I want to interact with human beings as much as I interact with ChatGPT. Now, if I'm writing a very serious email and I'm worried about how it lands, that's going to ChatGPT to say, can you help me take the edge off of this a little bit? But yeah, I'm really finding, for as much as I think there's huge value, and certainly in my role as Chief Data Officer, it's hugely important to think about how it impacts the state police, the Commonwealth of Virginia, and there are going to be, big impacts. We have to be very responsible. In my personal life, I find that I'm increasingly using it less and less, which maybe is a weird thing to admit as a Chief Data Officer who absolutely believes in the power of AI. Yeah, so that's this dichotomy I'm in, and I think we're going to see that in the world. To bring it back to your big question, I think human beings don't want to be interacting with AI all day long. I think they want to have, this is where AI is really helpful, and then I also want to be part of this village, and a village is made up of villagers, and everyone wants a village, but they don't all want to be villagers. So yeah, this is my rant a little bit on reintroducing a little bit of friction in my life, and it's frankly made me a lot happier, I think. So Yeah.
I'm not sure that's the question that fits the question you fear answering.
Fair enough.
Based on the answer.
Yeah, well, I had to admit that the chief data officer goes home and does not use ChatGPT. So, I had to admit that.
Well, I love the point of view that it's helped driving. If anything, GPT is helping, and AI is helping, at least for you and maybe for others,
Yeah.
drive to a more authentic and real experience.
Yeah, it's
So,
true.
That sounds like a science fiction topic
That's
to
right.
explore.
Yeah, I
if
would
no
love
one's
to.
explored that before.
You know what I still use ChatGPT for all the time?
What do you use it for?
Identifying bugs and animals. I'll be outside there. I'm like, well, what is this weird thing? I don't know. I don't have a friend who can tell me that. So that, me and ChatGPT, we have a long-running conversation about the things
Bugs
that live in
and
my
animals.
yard. Yeah, bugs and animals.
Well, then I have to refer you to
Very
iNaturalist
high-tech.
sometime. You should
Okay,
give that a look.
great. Yeah. Good.
But you brought up a good point. Your role has changed recently.
Yes.
And I have a couple questions for you about that.
Please, yeah.
But since we were just talking AI, let's continue on that subject for
Okay.
a second.
Great.
Tell me a little bit. Well, let's set the stage a little bit. You were a consulting leader in data, where we're serving a lot of different customers with different needs at different times in their own journeys.
Sure. Yeah.
And sometimes in different industries.
Right.
And now you're in public safety,
That's right.
which presumably brings a different lens
Absolutely.
to AI. So what can you tell us a little bit about how you think about AI now when you're on this, coming at it from this different perspective?
Yeah.
And in particular, how do you think about guardrails and
Sure.
trust and safety?
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, obviously the stakes are a lot different when it's asking ChatGPT for a recipe versus using any kind of generative AI in a law enforcement setting. So I will tell you right there, we are hyper cautious. We are extremely careful. We are not cavalier in our approach to it. We are certainly thinking of ways that AI can improve the safety of our troopers, improve the safety of the public. We have to date not implemented anything that we weren't incredibly sure of, and to be honest, I don't think we've implemented much at all because there's so much left out in the world to set precedent. So here's a couple of good examples of problems, right? AI-generated reports can quickly fall apart in court. So you as an arresting officer have to write a summary of what happened. You use ChatGPT, maybe ChatGPT uses a word. The defense lawyer picks up on that. They're like, this is a strange word. Can you tell me what you meant by this? And you say, oh, well, I ChatGPT that. I don't know what that word is. Well, there goes the case, right? So there's issues like that, or another recent one. This was big news. Probably 15 different people sent me a link to this article where someone was writing up one of their case summaries, and their child in the other room was watching The Princess and the Frog, and he was using voice to text, and it was also picking up the dialogue from that. And in the end result, the summary he submitted included things about frogs and turning into a frog. And this was huge national news. And so those are the types of embarrassments that we are absolutely doing everything on our power to avoid. So we're moving just extremely cautiously, and at the same time recognizing there's so much innovation here, right? That my vision is for us to lead the state, to lead the country in intelligence-led policing and using the tools at our fingertips, but also doing it in a way that we aren't blazing new trails. We want to be cutting edge, but not experimental. Right, so yeah, we think about it very, very seriously, very closely. We know there's a lot of legislation right now in this current cycle that's going to be around governing AI. Our friends at VITA and the Office of Data Governance and Analytics have put out a lot of guidelines on AI usage. So yeah, bottom line, we know it's here. We know it's a tool at our disposal. We are not using it lightly or cavalier in any kind of way. I do think the ability to tell a story and to explain a complex idea to people who may not understand it, not because they can't understand it, but they just don't come from that same frame of reference or same background, right? I mean, if you're in law enforcement, I wouldn't expect you to understand what a third normal form in a database looks like. That's not something I would expect anyone to understand.
Voice code doesn't come naturally.
Right, not really, no, not even me. And so, those are maybe not that specifically, but these types of things I have to communicate to people so they can understand what we're doing and why in a way that resonates and that they understand. So I think that's a skill set that I very much brought from consulting as well. Like I can pretty much take one of these concepts and explain it to anyone, especially once I kind of know their own frame of reference.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. That's a very complete answer. I'd like to probe it a little bit further, though.
Please, yeah.
Being that this is the data pour,
Yeah.
The use case you just described has more to do from operator
Sure.
pro- producing something
Yes.
that then has to get used in a real world setting.
Yep.
But we also deal with data where, you know the saying, it's kind of old now, but still true, data is the new oil.
Yeah.
And a lot of the AI features that we're using today are to mobilize intelligence from the data that we have.
That's right. Yeah.
The guardrails there are as important as filtering out frogs, of course.
Yeah, of course.
To the extent that you can you tell us a little bit about how your thinking has shifted, if at all,
Yeah.
about how to install and enforce protections
Sure.
to keep data segregated?
Yeah, great question. Obviously our data is extremely sensitive. Many industries deal with sensitive data. We deal with criminal history data, so it is about the most sensitive you can get in many cases, right? Many people's lives would be ruined with data breaches or things of that nature, right? So we have a lot of different safety and regulations in place. There's NIST, there's CGIS data requirements, there's SEC 530, from the state of Virginia, and we adhere to those very seriously. I mean, they're informing every conversation we're doing, every pilot we're looking at. Every time anyone wants to pull data, we're thinking about those things. When we're standing up a new system, there's a pretty thorough process of thinking through each and every one of those, and I can tell you it's pretty rigorous. In order, even internally, for me to get access to a system, I have to sign a non-disclosure agreement again for different systems. Like it is taken extremely seriously, and I think many of those guardrails are in place, and so that can feel like it's stymieing innovation sometimes. I'm like, ooh, I want to combine these data sets. It is not just as easy as writing a query and pulling that data into Snowflake, right? There's an entire process of figuring out, doing some risk analysis and figuring out who's responsible for that data. That being said, traditional data governance is how you tackle this. There's various maturity levels, I think, like any industry, in ours as well, in identifying, how data governance is applied throughout the organization. But, number one priority for everybody is the safety of any individuals whose data is in that system, and ensuring that data isn't used for bad things or used incorrectly, or where data quality can impact something. So.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
As a resident, I'm
So
especially
am I.
glad to
So
hear
was
that.
I, to be honest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when you encountered it.
Yeah.
I'll probe a little bit further on this
Please.
because this is such an interesting topic.
Yeah.
Right? Given where you are and the kinds of use cases you field, you sort of tease out all the questions all at once that are relevant towards data security,
Sure.
AI appropriateness, what hallucination means, what the
Right.
damage can be from it. And my follow-up question to this, Steve, is a lot of our traditional controls, whether in organizations or in data systems, was about limiting who can ask questions.
Yes.
And we do that by not allowing access to certain roles at all.
Sure.
You can't even ask the question. Some AI solutions, of course, change that.
Right.
It's a conversational interface.
Right.
You can ask it anything you want. Chances are there are good ways to catch the question, right? But my question to you is, given that this is a brand new capability
Right.
to have these sort of interactions, how do you think about,
Sure.
maybe it's not solved yet, but how do you think about the problem of the question that somebody's asking right from the beginning?
Sure. Yeah, great question. We're still very much piloting these, so nothing has reached production yet, so I can't give you a definitive, here's exactly how we did it. However, we are leveraging from our vendor provider, which is Snowflake. There is, their analyst tool will take into account what your role is and what you have access to, and it will not utilize any data that you wouldn't otherwise have access to. So any of your questions are only going to be through the lens and the context of what you would already have access to. And we are being very rigorous about our role-based access control and who can access what. As for how that plays out once we start testing, like I said, we're still very much in the pilot phase. So we're thinking about this, but we haven't really implemented much yet. In many of our systems, we actually do have a log of queries that have been run or questions that have been asked. Again, these aren't conversational yet because that's relatively new. But even in our traditional search, systems where there's law enforcement data, there's logs of who asked what, who queried what, and that's a really good paradigm, and that gets audited pretty regularly. Actually, my team's been asked to help audit that perhaps even using some of the advanced tools in Snowflake where we can identify things better than a list of, discrete rules, that maybe we can look for things that are a little more fishy using artificial intelligence. We haven't done that yet. That's kind of just an idea. But so all that exists now as a paradigm and will continue to exist moving forward. So yeah, we do keep an audit log of everything. And in a perfect world, perhaps you catch those questions on the front end where the analyst says, whoa, I don't think you should be asking this question. And I've logged that. I've sent that to Precog. They're going to take a look at that. We're obviously not there yet, but it is something we think about as well.
So, Steve, thanks a lot for talking to us about AI.
Of course.
Now I want to turn it back to you a little bit.
No. Oh, okay.
Right.
Let's
And
go.
This is, I can verify for the record, this is Steve and not a materialized hologram of an AI agent. Steve.
I tried to get the materialized hologram. It wasn't quite ready. It was a little too buggy.
Yeah,
it looked a lot better than I did, so you would have known.
It's funny, your agent didn't say that. So, you have gone, so let's go back to your career progression for a second.
Sure, please.
You have gone from a consulting career
Yes,
and
sir.
a consulting leader
Right.
to Chief Data Officer of the Virginia State Police.
Right.
What can you tell us about some of the skills that, how well the skills that you developed and have to use as a consultant
Sure.
transfer
Yeah.
to the position you have now?
Yeah, great question.
And maybe you could add what surprised you.
Yeah, okay. So to your first part of your question, I think almost everything I learned in consulting has already served me. I've been here not even quite 5 months yet, but to me it feels clear that I was well positioned to be dropped into something that A, is a new role, so the Chief Data Officer for the Virginia State Police. This is the first time that role's existed. And B, they have almost 100 years of history, right? So there's a lot that's already there. So in consulting, what's the first thing you learn? Like, you got to be an expert on the business in about a week. And, I'm not fully there. I couldn't tell you every single acronym, but I feel like I'm pretty well prepared to be drinking from the fire hose and figuring out how to apply that. The other thing I think is really important in a chief data officer role, and I hope that pans out, is it is largely about relationship building. I think data is important, of course, but it's the people that leverage that data and the people that enter that data and process that data and learning about their processes. And so to me, being able to form relationships with both our stakeholders and the producers of our data, and anyone from the CISO who's helping provide input into how things need to be architected to our technical teams who are actually building things, I think consulting has set me up well for kind of quickly building rapport with people and building relationships with folks. And so that's been a big help. The other thing, in consulting, you never come into a situation that's rosy. Like, let's just be real. Nobody's like, hey, Epon, everything's going great. Can you help us? That's not a situation we get put into. So I feel like I'm always ready to be in crisis management mode. There's been zero crises, but as a result, I'm always ready to deal with kind of whatever comes its way. And it's just, it's just water under the bridge. Like, you can just deal with anything, and nothing is ever as, as dire as it has been at some of the most stressful times in consulting. Not to say those things won't come down the road, but so I think as a result, it helps me really prioritize work. I can really hone in on, okay, what really needs to be prioritized? What are the things that would be nice to have? What are going to be big wins, right? As we're proving out a lot of this new technology, how are we going to really kind of sell that to the business, which is another skill you learn a lot in consulting, is how do you sell your team? How do you
tell the story? Communicate
tell the
something
story?
Complex to something that's actionable.
I think that right there is one of the major skills I brought is what we're doing is very complicated for people who don't understand it, right? And so you have to break things down and explain it to people who may not really have much of an understanding other than, oh, I hear about AI all the time. I've heard this data thing, but I don't really know what it is. Is data a spreadsheet? And so even just explaining what we do is kind of step one, and then explaining how we can benefit folks, and then demonstrating what we did to benefit them, and all those skills I think have been really beneficial and really impactful so far. I do think the ability to tell a story and to explain a complex idea to people who may not understand it, not because they can't understand it, but they just don't come from that same frame of reference or same background, right? I mean, if you're in law enforcement, I wouldn't expect you to understand what a third normal form in a database looks like. That's not something I would expect anyone to understand.
Voice code doesn't come naturally.
Right,
to anyone.
not really, no, not even me. And so, those are maybe not that specifically, but these types of things I have to communicate to people so they can understand what we're doing and why in a way that resonates and that they understand. So, so I think that's a skill set that I very much brought from consulting as well. Like I can pretty much take one of these concepts and explain it to anyone, especially once I kind of know their own frame of reference. I forgot what your second part of your question was. It was
What surprised you?
what surprised me. Yeah, good question. This is my first time working for the state full time. I have consulted before, and I think sometimes the state gets. I think government gets a reputation of like, people are kind of showing up, punching the clock. And I think as a consultant, I had seen that a couple times too in various, certainly federal agencies and things. That's just not the case here. And I don't know if the Virginia State Police is special, or maybe it's that the mission is so important to everyone. That is just fundamentally not true. People are really passionate about what they do. They're very capable and competent. There's just a lot of things that they have to do on kind of shoestring budgets. It's sometimes stymie efforts, and yet everything runs really on these heroic efforts of people who really care about what they do and really care about doing quality work. And so, to be completely honest, I think coming into this, I was like, all right, let's see if this is the right pace. And very quickly, I was proven that was completely wrong. And I'm like really proud to be a part of it. I really think it's very different than I expected. Just being brutally honest there.
Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I have to say it's really come through in a lot of the conversations we've had.
Yeah, that's right.
Offline. Although I do feel compelled to point out for the record that EPON does have customers as well who are really excited about a new mission and taking on something new and building it. They may not have any major crises. It's a pace that they want to affect.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
And it sounds like you're pretty jazzed to find out that the pace was already there, and it was about
to be honest,
burning.
My first couple months are not that different than a fresh consulting engagement, right? Because again, this role is new.
Yeah.
So to your point, it's hey, we want to do something new. We want to accelerate. We have these things we want to do but don't know how. And so I think part of consulting is beyond just building trust, it's educating, it's kind of bringing people along for the ride, building consensus, and then also actually executing on it and doing it, right?
Yes.
So, so all those skills have been beneficial. And lastly, I'll say, you get exposed to so many different types of industries and so many different challenges and so many different approaches to solving those challenges. I do feel like I have a really good playbook. Almost no situation am I like, oh, I've never seen this before. Every time I'm like, cool, yep, I have tackled something very similar to this couple years ago with a client that had this problem, and so I feel like I'm kind of almost always prepared for the curveballs that come.
You come in with a big recipe book.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's been beneficial.
Steve, on previous episodes of the Data Pour, we saw a very relaxed Steve enjoying a beverage in a place like this here at the Veil.
Right. Yeah.
And you were decompressing calm. Now you work for the Virginia State Police.
Sure.
In a very important job. Tell us a little bit about what you do now to decompress.
Yeah, great question. Well, let's see. I have an 85-pound yellow lab who loves to be walked and to play fetch. Like, he would play fetch literally all day long if he could. So that's a big part of it. Come home, do that. I play music. I've recently kind of gotten back into that in a bigger way. I've never really stopped playing music, but a bunch of my old friends that I played with long ago in a different city all now also live in Richmond, so we get back together and play music, and that's just, it's so rewarding to be able to do again. I play games, play board games with some of my friends as well. I believe you've joined us on a couple of those.
Absolutely.
So some fun, nerdy pursuits. It kind of scratches a different itch, right? You got music on one hand, and then you got complex board game rules on the other. Those are great. Besides that, my wife and I, we just recently moved into a new house a couple months ago. So my weekends have been absolutely full of painting and,
wallpaper,
renovating. Wallpaper right now is a lot of fun. I have a 14-year-old daughter who is awesome. She's like really cool. Teens kind of go through the ebbs and flows. She's really cool right now. So I'm really,
a couple.
Yeah. I know you know that. So spend as much time as I can with her. I love movies. I mean, I'm a man of many pursuits. Whatever it is to keep me busy.
And they followed with you. Well, Steve, then I think I just have one more question for you.
Sure, hit me.
So over several episodes of The Pour,
Yeah,
you've asked your guests to give advice.
yeah.
So now looking back and speaking to your guests,
Right.
what advice would you give them as we wrap up the series?
Great question. Do consulting for a couple years. I think every single person should work for a consulting firm for at least a couple years. I think the skill sets you learn just set you up so well no matter what it is you're doing. If you're a data engineer and you also learn customer facing skills, you're far beyond any other data engineer of similar skill set. Right? Those soft skills, those people skills, I think are taught well in the rapid pace of a consulting firm. I really feel like my career has set me up so well because of that. And I will often now be in meetings and I'll be like, that person used to be a consultant. And I'll find out like, yep, they did 5 years at Deloitte or something like that. My wife works in marketing, but she also has a background in consulting. She's doing so well at her job. And I'm like, I know it's because you know how to navigate complex relationships with people. So, I'll echo all the other advice that people have given, which is, never stop learning. Of course, that's important. Constantly be training, keep up with things. Network is a huge deal. But I will say, put in some time as a consultant. It's fast paced and you learn so much in that amount of time, and lean into it. Learn the things that you should be learning, and I think it'll pay dividends for you.
Well, Steve, we met here today at lunchtime, so we treated ourselves to some wonderful burgers.
Delicious.
Which means we don't have a beverage for our next toast. But I think we'll be okay if I still say, till next time, to knowledge and connection, one episode at a time.